This is Beatwala, serving up the stories behind the beats and taking you straight to the soul of exceptional artists, as we sit down every week to unravel what fuels their artistic expression and creation, here on Beatwala, with me, Jo Ewell. Today's guest grew up in the Bronx of Washington Heights. Founder and creator of hyper-soul and hyper-ancestral sound, OVEOUS has been elevating audiences around the world with his captivating sets, merging spoken word, lush vocals and music. He won Amateur Night at the Apollo Theatre so many times they asked him to stop coming to make way for other talent. He's a 3 times National Poetry finalist with countless TV appearances and paved the way to music collaborations with Grammy Award-winning artists like Roy Ayers, Louis Vega and Andre de Santana. And we are here at the Alma Festival, sitting here in the music studio. It's a pleasure, OVEOUS, to welcome you to today's episode.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
I mean, I gather you've flown in from the Big Apple to be here at Alma, and you had a pretty big party last night. How did that go?
Yeah, I flew in from New York, and as soon as I landed here, it was just a beautiful energy. I never felt any jet lag or anything, and it just put me on the path to like having a great weekend. And last night, the closing party, playing almost a 4-hour set last night, was pretty incredible. It was quite a blessing to see so many people smiling and dancing all night. Just looking out into the dance floor and seeing people losing their minds is just it's what you hope for when you play a set. That you want to bring that joy to people. So it was incredible. Yeah.
I mean, this isn't your first trip to Ibiza, is it? You've been here quite a bit this summer already.
Actually, yeah. Well, this is my second trip to Ibiza. I came in July for a few days. It was a very short trip, but it was quite beautiful. I performed at Sabina and had an amazing sold out shows, like my debut here in Ibiza, and lots of love and support for my first show here. And yeah, it was a different energy in July, but it was still quite beautiful and really, really nice. And to be back here for a second time now after the high season this year, the very same year, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to experience the two different dynamics that like Ibiza can have, So yeah, quite happy to be back. Yeah.
What's the perception of a place like Ibiza in somewhere like New York in terms of this like party paradise that everyone talks about? Is that kind of the impression that you get from your immediate circle and contemporaries there?
Yeah, it's really like when I look at when I've seen clips online, all these years that like I wasn't coming here, like I just kept seeing clips online about like how this is like almost like spring break for like 3 or 4 months straight, a lot of like young people coming in to party and rave and stuff. And it looks like a lot of fun, and it's a lot of energy too that like comes through here. So it definitely lived up to that when I was here in July. It was a lot of people here, young, old, like everything. And the energy was quite lively, And now it's quite beautiful though. Now it's like more chill, and there's still this beautiful energy here, but there's more space now, and it's a nice contrast, I think. Yeah, but yeah, it definitely felt like spring break Miami or something like that in July here, and it was fun. It was a bit crazy, but it was fun.
What was it like kind of growing up, in the Bronx, like in terms of, your lyricism and how you got into the kind of wordsmithery and the poetry, and where did that come from?
So Washington Heights is in Manhattan, and in the Bronx, I lived in Riverdale side of the Bronx, and they're pretty close to each other, those two neighborhoods. And yeah, it was really a place rich with so much culture and music. Growing up in New York, from an early age, I fell in love with house music and hip hop music. Like we all know, hip hop music was born in the Bronx, and yeah, so it is. It's an interesting place to. Yeah, it's quite a blessing, honestly, to be raised in like such an epic city that has had such an impact on the world with music. And yeah, I'm really grateful for it. living in New York, you're just surrounded by this energy and this inspiration. It was just all around us. And, we say like iron sharpens iron a lot out there. And it's really true. When I started to meet other MCs and other poets and other DJs, like that was honestly going to the clubs was like my school. That's where I was studying all the greats, all the great DJs that are like legends now. Like I used to just go as a teenager to watch them, and I was absorbing the culture and learning and seeing what works and what doesn't work. So it's quite a blessing to be brought up in a city like New York. It's the inspiration is all around you, and it's like if you're gonna be an artist, like it's really up to you to just tap into it and dive into it, which is what I did.
You say the greats, the legends. Like who are we talking about here?
Man, like Osun Lade is like my top, and I would say him and like Louis Vega, and thankfully like it was always a dream of mine to work with them, and I have. So like they've just been amazing, very inspirational. And there was a lot of other DJs too that people might not know. Like I remember in the 90s, like DJs like Kim Lightfoot, of course, like everybody knows like Timmy Regisford. It's just there's so many people. Like Armand Van Helden was someone that I used to hang out with when I was a teen, and he was playing in Boston at the time. There was an amazing party called The Loft in Boston. And there was also a guy named Bruno that was like a resident there with Armand Van Helden. And there's just so many people. There's a guy named Neff Nunez who like was just super only known in the scene, but to me, he was just one of the greatest DJs. In the early 2000s, he just was that kind of guy that would find the records no one else was playing and just blow people's minds. And I love that. I love that kind of surprise, So especially in New York, where like all of these great DJs have access to all of the same records, right? You go to the record store and it's like, oh, this record's hot. And then it starts like, one person plays it and everybody's playing it. But there were certain guys like Osun Lade, Neff Nunez, of course, Louis Vega, like these people would always surprise you. And that was one of the things I really loved and I set out to do as well. Like when I started entering, the DJ space.
So which genre had more influence over you? Was it those days spent in the club admiring the house greats, or was it more like the hip hop scene of your kind of local neighborhood?
Well, in New York City, like hip hop and house music were like siblings, they were like really close cousins. First cousins or siblings, really. Like it was one of those things where you would go, like there was a club named Vinyl, and we would go there, and in one room there was house music, and then in another room it was hip hop. So, it was like you can walk from one room to the other, and in the hip hop room, guys are dancing hip hop in the circles and break dancing, and in the house room, you have like people doing lofting and footwork and dancing to house music in a circle. So it was always the circle. It was always the circle. It was always like tribal and ritual, which we needed that in the city because the city is such a hard place to live in, and there's so much going on there. There's so much energy that, this was like a sanctuary for us. We would go to these clubs and we would go there like at 1 a.m. or something and leave there like at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. and the sun is out again, So it was a beautiful thing. And I'm eternally grateful for the schooling that I got through the culture, through the nightlife culture.
I think you talk about this kind of tribal feeling and this need for connection and dance. And I was having a conversation with a musician earlier who was hosting a singing circle. And, it's just that feeling of living in a concrete jungle of just like disconnection, basically. And that's kind of, tribes throughout the world obviously dance and sing, and it's a natural thing that people do. But, it's a very different environment, I think, when you go and connect in those kinds of places and spaces throughout the world in the kind of way that you do, I think, through electronic music. It's a whole different ballgame. Was Vinyl, was that Danny Tenaglia's club, or he used to do a night there that was...
Yes, thank you. I was actually thinking like what, there was another guy, yes, Danny Tenaglia. The name was escaping me, but he was another great DJ that would play at Vinyl. He had his night at Vinyl. And then there was also like Joe Clausel, and Danny Krivit. They would play Body and Soul. It was just an incredible place and so much music and inspiration there. But yes, Yes.
I think he banned alcohol on his night. That was the only club in New York that you could not drink booze. I think everything else was allowed, but by the
Yeah,
looks of the
probably.
the
Yeah.
footage.
Wow, I didn't even notice that. I never. You're probably right. There was no alcohol there. I never. Well, I don't drink alcohol, so I wouldn't even have noticed. To me, it's just quite normal to just go to the club to dance. That's what we would do. We would go there with our friends to cipher, and then I was so like lucky and fortunate to have danced with the first generation of the creators. They're called Mop Top. The Elite Force crew and Mop Top, they pioneered hip hop dance and house dancing, and then came the second generation of dancers, which was me, Bobby Mileage, Brooklyn Terry, all these guys that were like very influential in the scene. And yeah, it was we were just so focused on dancing, like I'm realizing that now, that you're right. I think whenever we went to the bar, it was like water, there was fruits out and stuff, like you could, it was about refueling and getting back on the dance floor. It was beautiful, man. It's really quite beautiful.
Nice. Well, I think that's kind of creates a whole different place, I think, for people to interact. It's a very different interaction with people that are drinking and people that are just loving each other. It's a whole different ball game, and I think there's a lot to be said for that, for sure. I think it's very interesting. And I mean, in terms of where the lyricism and the poetry, that obviously came before this kind of like house music era that you're kind of DJing and gigging and touring a lot right now. But like when you were in the space where you were obviously going to poetry slams and getting banned from the Apollo for being too good, like what kind of headspace was that you were in when you were, obviously that's your creative outlet?
Well, that story is I'm glad you asked me that, because this is, I believe, like probably the most important part of my journey as an artist. I had a younger brother who his name was Carlos Paul, and he used to go by the name of Ziiinc Blue. That was his pen name. And my brother suffered from mental illness and depression, and he took his own life in October 6th of 2002. And I always wanted my younger brother. He was such an amazing lyricist. I wanted to take him to the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, because I thought for sure he would get discovered there, because he was just amazing with his words. And I got this awful phone call from, I think it was a police department, that he jumped off the bridge connecting the Heights to the Bronx in Riverdale, and they found his body 3 days later on October 8th. And I went to his apartment to clean up his place and his belongings, and I found his book of rhymes. And I had this moment in that apartment. I was all alone sitting there, and I could feel my brother's aura and energy around me. And when I was reading his books, just something happened to me. There was like this spiritual bond or connection that I have found with my brother. It's quite hard to explain, because it was an energetic feeling and experience. But I honestly believe that my brother's spirit just came to my guide, and he woke me up to express myself again and to use my voice. And so my idea was to go to the Nuyorican Poets Cafe. I wrote my very first poem. It was just a poem about New York City, and like how crazy it is to live in New York. I go there to the open mic. I've never done this before. I've never performed before. I like have my poem on a piece of paper. I'm shaking, and I'm reciting this poem at the open mic at the Nuyorican Poets Cafe in a packed house. I mean, this is the home of like so many great legendary poets, and here I am, like reciting a poem for the first time and really scared. But I took an oath to do this, because I thought to myself, well, my brother couldn't be here physically, so I will bring him with me in spirit. And it was crazy. I got a standing ovation the very first time I hit the stage, and it changed my life. It was an electrifying feeling that I never experienced again. I can't even explain to you the electricity and energy that was running through my body. It was crazy. It was this inner knowing. There was this like whole, it's like my life flashed right before me and was like, yep, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go down this path and we're gonna speak to the world and we're gonna share this gift with the world. And at the time, I was a very successful designer in the fashion industry. And my parents thought I was crazy for leaving that industry behind, but I just felt the calling and I could hear my brother in dreams and I can feel his energy and spirit that this is what we needed to do. And here we are 2 decades later, just sharing this beautiful gift of words and music around the world. And I'm very grateful for my brother's sacrifice. I, uh, I know it was very painful for him to live in this world with that pain and that depression. And I know that he ended his life to end the pain. And I know that he's at peace now because I'm very connected to him. And so, yeah, like that was the moment that I decided to change my life and to never look back. I left the fashion industry and I mean, I still gotta look fly, you know what I'm saying? You can see it, right? Yeah, I mean, but nah. But yeah, like I had to dive back into the poetry and the music, and it was scary, man, and it was hard. Like, I had all this money in my bank account, and it was like I was draining it right to the very, like I had a couple $100 left, from having like a really good savings account, but I was investing in myself, and I just knew it was gonna work out. I just had to trust, and then yeah, things started to turn around as soon as people took notice and started to support me and what I was doing, and people could see it was authentic, that it was something that I was moving forward with my heart. And yeah, when something's undeniable, it's, and somebody's real, it shows. And I'm grateful for everyone in my journey that has helped me and helped me get to this point. So, and we're still only getting started. So but thank you for asking that question.
I mean, yeah, I had no idea what you were actually going to come back with. And I'm so sorry to hear about your brother. I really am. I think when I watched one of your poetry videos earlier, I think it was at Deaf Poets Cafe, or I want to say Dead Poet Society, but that was definitely a film. And it was almost just like, I've never seen anyone so fired up and passionate, and your voice is like booming across the crowd, and you're kind of like dissing your mum. And you kind of came back with this like epic response, which really like blew my head off, actually, about women's cycles. And I just like, yeah, where did that come from? I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Like, yeah, that inspiration came from my mother. My parents separated when I was like 8 years old, and I was raised by my mother. My name comes from my grandfather Ovidio, which means the female god, the god of life and rebirth. And so they named me Ov, and everyone knows me as OVEOUS. And like the inspiration came from seeing my mother's struggle as a single parent, as a woman in the world, and as a single parent. That's very difficult. And then two boys, we weren't easy, like feeding us and trying to take care of us and looking after us. And she did an amazing job. And I just wanted to write a poem to recognize the power that women have, to have us in your body for 9 months. I mean, I get sick of carrying a backpack for a few hours. I mean, you're carrying a human for 9 months. It's like, it's so easy to overlook the magic in that, like the sacred magic in something like that. So
I actually discovered your music a few short days ago, I cannot lie, on a volleyball court. We were having a tournament on Sunday, and obviously everyone was taking in turns to hog the sound system. And suddenly my friend Maral, I think you might have met her at Sabina, she just put on your track Legacy, and we went from like 90s acid house
disaster music, which I was not enjoying, to suddenly something amazing, and everybody started dancing like on the sand, and I was like, what is this? And everyone like literally gathered around and took a screenshot of her phone, which is kind of why we're sitting here. So it was kind of an interesting way to come into that. But I think, you know, that track specifically, I mean, it's kind of impossible not to start shaking one's booty when that track comes on. It's like a very tribal, just, yeah, I wonder where you crafted and developed that sound specifically.
Man, so I want to give a huge shout out to the producer of the track. His name is Don Camaras. He's an amazing talent. He's in London at the moment, Don Camaras, and we've never actually met. Me and Don have never met in person, but we were linked together by another great artist and DJ named At Jazz, who's also from the UK. So shout out to At Jazz for connecting me to Don Camaras, and shout out to Don for sending me this track. I was in Tulum at the time, and when I'm in nature, I just like get into a flow state, and I was in this beautiful, quiet Mexican neighborhood, like just a little bit, maybe like 1 minute outside of Tulum. And I'm in my apartment one morning, and I start listening to the beat, the groove, and then Don actually gave me some guidance. He was like, hey, if you can talk about like the dancers and the culture. And I was like, yes, I've been meaning to do that. I've been wanting to do that. This is the perfect track for it. So the song, I just like, it just came out of me. I like freestyled it. I don't have any record of writing it. I was looking through my notes to see, did I write this? And lately I've been just like, just kind of going into a flow state, recording bits and pieces of rhymes and putting things together. So I put that song together, I think it was in 2021, and then in around 2022 I played it for Osunlade, and he was like, bro, are you fucking kidding me? He's like, we got to put this out right now. And literally a month later he put it out, and then it just blew up. And it's so cool, man. It's so cool that like a track that I didn't know if it was actually good, I was like, this is cool, but is it? I was just I'm just very picky and like hard on myself sometimes. And yeah, it took the great Osunlade to tell me, you're fucking crazy, bro. This shit is fire, and we're putting this out. So we did, and it's amazing. People are really enjoying the track, and it's like a year later, and people are still, like you just said, you just discovered it a couple of days ago, and it's very fresh and new still. And I think it's, I just co-headlined the Mi Casa Festival in Playa del Carmen in Mexico, and Louis was the headliner. I was the co-headliner and of that festival. It was amazing talent all throughout throughout that weekend, and Louis Vega didn't even know that I was in the festival. He had just flown he was here in Ibiza. He flew out there to Mexico. He literally like went from the hotel, got some sleep, showed up to play his set, and his second track was Legacy. And so people passed me the microphone, and I start singing along to the track, and he looks over and at me, he's like, holy shit, you're here. So it was a beautiful moment that happened there at Mi Casa Festival. And then at the end of the night, Louis came up to me. He was like, congratulations. He's like, you made a classic, another classic, and it's a forever track. And that's a beautiful thing to hear from someone great like that I was able to contribute something that people will enjoy forever. That's a forever, song. Like long after I'm gone, the song will have a legacy, so yeah.
The irony was not lost on me. Can you give us the lyric? Would you be so kind, since we're here?
Yeah, it's this is for legacy. Don't get it twisted now. We on a mission now. Speakers are getting loud. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a song that just says thank you to the culture that, like what we were saying earlier today, earlier in this interview, about the culture as like of house music and coming together in the nightclub and just letting the music be the medicine. And that's why, and the song gave me so much confidence and joy that I had to put that in the lyrics. That's why I have moments where I'm like, I just be doing me. I got a whole new style. I'm about to get real wild. Yeah, I'm gonna go off on this. And that's like when the song comes on, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go off on this. And we would go into a circle like supercharged and so much energy to like be connected with that song in the circle. And it's a beautiful thing that we do as humans to gather and dance.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want people to remember me as a healer, as someone that did his absolute best and dedicated his life to diving into this craft to literally give people access to healing through my music, through my words, through my poems. And long after I'm gone, I want people to enjoy this music, to enjoy these words, to allow these words to repair their hearts, to allow them to reimagine a world where there is more peace and more love than conflict. We're in a place right now where we really need to dive into more love, and we should be living in harmony in this planet, in this third rock from the sun. Like, we are here together, and we forget so easily, with all the lines on the maps and shit. We forget that at the end of the day, man, we're one human race, and we all just want to live in harmony. We all share these emotions of love and pain and sadness, and we all love sex, and we all love, like all the things that make us feel good. We have all of this in common. We all have families, and we all have like this heart inside of us that like really wants to connect in community. So like, let us not lose sight of that, and let's holla at me, somebody out there. You see this, I'm out there, and you have the power to join my team so we can change the world. Let's do that. So yeah,
love it. And I just think the world definitely needs a lot more love, and I think music is just such a healing tool. I mean, not just listening to it, but dancing and community and getting together in places like this at the moment is definitely what we need to also lighten the load, just by getting together and sending that healing frequency out into the world. I just think everybody's feeling pretty helpless right now, watching world events unfold, and somehow just getting together to celebrate life in small ways feels important. It was interesting, actually, looking through your back catalogue. Obviously, as I said, I literally found you a few days ago on the volleyball court, but I found a track called Mirror Dance that you made with on Salade. And I discovered them, I think 15 years ago, when My Reflection came out. So it was like My Reflection, Mirror Dance. To be honest, that's actually possibly in my top 10.
My Reflection. Oh, I'm going to have to
tracks
play that
all
today.
Time.
I'm playing that
It
today.
is so good. Oh. So I listened to it again today, My Reflection, and I was watching the video, and then he's sitting in front of Esvedra in Ibiza. Yes. So I was like,
I did not know that.
That is mental.
That's cool.
Isn't it?
That is so cool. I did not know that. I'm going to have to go back and watch it. Yeah, I am. That's so cool. Yeah, Mirror Dance. So you want to know the story of Mirror Dance?
Yes, please. I do also love that just as much. It's amazing.
I mean, first of all, like, how I just want to acknowledge I just want to tell the universe how lucky and blessed I am. I mean, who gets to work with like their heroes? Like, first song entering the music scene, like my very first release was Mirror Dance with Osunlade, the guy who I was listening to in the club, when I was a kid, and like I had no idea who this person was, because like Timmy Regisford would play records like Pride with Nadira Shakur singing on that, and it's just like mind-blowing music, very beautiful music. And like, here I am, fast forward, it's 2006, and we're in Toronto, and I record a couple of demos and poems with Osunlade in Toronto, and then in 2007 he actually took the recording of Mirror Dance and put it, the poem was originally called An Ode to the Dancer, and then he just put it on Mirror Dance, so I changed the title to of the poem from Ode to the Dancer to Mirror Dance. And it was so funny, like how it came out. I had no idea that Osunlade was like gonna put it out. Originally the poem was meant for another track that ended up called Trinity of OV Me, and that's a really dope track too. But he took the Mirror Dance poem, put it on the Mirror Dance remix. It came out, and suddenly, like, one of my friends who's also a huge inspiration, Marcus Wyatt from Los Angeles, shout out to my boy Marcus Wyatt, he texted me, this was like summer of 2007 or 8, And he texts me and he's like, hey, OVEOUS, you killed that mirror dance. And my text back to him was, what's a mirror dance? I had no idea that the song had come out. Osolande was so excited about it that he just like, they put it out and it was like playing all over the place. It was everywhere. So like my introduction to the music world was through this track, and it was like an instant global hit. And it was quite beautiful to be introduced to this way, you know, and it's been a beautiful journey since to create music with him and all of these peers who are people I look up to, and yeah, it's quite awesome. Yeah.
Interesting that that collaboration came around right at the very, very start of things, because I don't know what it is about that one particular track, but it's been in my mind. I used to play it in yoga classes actually, and kind of just felt it's just such a rounded, full. It does actually remind me a little bit of your music, if I'm honest. So that's why I was just quite blown away to see that he was sitting in front of Esvedra.
I didn't even play it last night, but because I was saving it for today. I'm definitely going to play it today at the Hypersoul Dance. And actually, another thing I wanted to say about the origin story is that a really good friend of mine who passed away by the name of Voodoo Ray, he was one of my biggest mentors, and was actually there at my very first DJ gig, just supporting me, and he was like one of my biggest fans and one of my biggest mentors. So rest in peace, Voodoo Ray. I love you. Voodoo Ray had known about the poem, and before anyone had heard it, we were in the Winter Music Conference in Miami. This was probably 2005. And I had just met Osolande, and through one of my best friends, Quetzal Guerrero, who goes by QVLN. And Q introduced me to Osolande and the whole Yoruba Records camp. But even before that, Voodoo Ray had me recite the Mirror Dance poem. And there's a YouTube video of this. My friend Bradford James, another great DJ, shout out to him. There's so many people that have helped me along the way. So Voodoo Ray and Bradford James supported me in my very first DJ gig on my birthday in 2009. Before that, we're in Miami, and Ray says, you have to recite that poem for the dancers at this dance competition in Miami. And the poem, I mean, this is early days of YouTube, but the poem went viral. It like people were,
hear it.
Yeah, and the video is still online somewhere.
Can you remember it?
The poem? Oh yeah. I can recite parts of it for you now. But yeah, it was. I am so grateful that Ray, and that I listened to him. Ray had this ability to see things and see like had this vision, and he was like, you need to recite this poem, it's going to be amazing. And I was like, okay, and I did, and it really just resonated with people in the culture. And I think Osolande saw that video on YouTube and was like, yo, we got to work with this guy. But yeah, I mean, basically the poem, it talks about how we are the sons and daughters of a dance revolution, the sons and daughters of off-balance walks and distorted body rhythms. We are a footstep generation, a generation that defeated journeys of oppression through acrobatic expression when the tongues of freedom had conversations with the body languages of Angola and Regional. Ooh, how you like us now, cause we are the souls clapping for the souls that are still dancing, that refuse to forget us, that let us relive history through dance floor circles, circulating the cycle of life. We're the light. We are the light at the other end of Harriet's tunnel. The forefathers of 7 moons before moonwalking got jacked. Son, before electric boogaloo gave you the shock. Son, before the sons of war marched in rhythms of foot patrol towards the sun and shook the earth before rocks could be steady. We were the sons and daughters who were ready to conquer a nation of magnetic injustices through this movement. Ooh, every time our bodies moved, it meant that we were going to do something, prove something can change through the rhythms of our past, rhythms of saoko, rumba, salsa, matanza, fania, bachata, jazz, tapping, chanting, clapping, afro drumming, jazz, bebop, hip hop to up rock, and it don't stop. So come on, jazz, and we are the sons and daughters of a dance revolution, and we shall overcome someday. I'll leave it there.
I can't clap because I've got a microphone in my.
We'll do the snaps like we did back in the poetry days.
Isn't that what they do in like spoken word clubs? What
they
do
sometimes they'll be like,
Is clapping
we like
insults?
the claps better than the stomps. Like we like that energy in Nuyorican. We like people to go crazy, like stomp a chair or something. Energy.
Is clapping like an insult to the words? Is that the vibration?
Is it an insult? No, we love it. We love when people clap. Like, yeah. I mean, like I said, my first time in Nuyorican, getting a standing ovation, it's so crazy. I don't know if I'll ever have that feeling again that I had like that day. That I can't even describe it. It was crazy. But I'm glad I experienced it at least once, and I remember it. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, we love the claps and the foot stomping.
How many poems are in there? How do you get to this point where you can just recite things like that so brilliantly and remember every word?
Oh, it's a lot of practice and a lot of dedication. I've been doing this for 2 decades. I went to the Nuyorican in 2002, and I really started to become a professional around 2003 or 4. By 2006, I was already at the Apollo. In 2007, I did HBO Deaf Poetry. So it's 2 decades of doing this, and that's not even counting the years before that when I was watching some of my poetry heroes like Saul Williams and Bosia and Mums and the Jessica Care Moores of the world. There's so much influence out there that I've had, and it's just practice. I think I've heard the brother Questlove from The Roots say that. He said something very brilliant once. He said, most humans, if you do something 27 times, it commits to memory. Like the brain, like that's kind of the magic number. 20, if you do something in repetition at least 27 times, you commit it to memory. So I would do that. I would recite these poems over and over again and over again. But so that I wouldn't get bored, I would do it. I would change my voice or the pacing of how I'd recite it so that I can get the poem in my body. One of my favorite poets, Roger Bernard. I hope people are Googling these names too. When you hear me say these names, if you're interested in any of this shit, Google these names. You're going to find some amazing
We'll put it in the
artists.
show notes.
Yeah. Roger Bernard told me, he was you got to get the poem in your body, and so there's because body language is also a way of communication. So so repetition, body language, and then you memorize the poem, and then at a certain point you master the poem, and that's the fun part, because then you can do whatever you want with it creatively. So the fear goes away the more and more you become familiar with your practice, no matter what it is that you do. The more you do something, the more of you feel more familiar with it, and so you're more calm. There's a comfort there, and that comfort allows you to enter that flow state. And when there's no fear, you're not distracted, because fear is a distraction in your mind. It doesn't really exist. It's just you're having a nervous response to what you think is going to be failure. But if you put the time into something, the fear doesn't exist. The anxiety doesn't exist. So, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us in this rather lovely studio. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
See you on the dance floor.
Yeah, see you on the dance floor. Peace, guys.